Salutations and welcome, friends. I'm your host to this Kentucky Derby Spotlight video. My name is Matthew DeSantis. You can find me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. To my right is El Hombre joining me here to go over another major contender for the Kentucky Derby that we're going to be spotlighting today. Before we get to verifying the horse we're going to be spotlighting, just make sure to press that subscribe button here on YouTube, like this video, and comment below with what you think verifying's top end can potentially be in this Kentucky Derby field. El Hombre, verifying is one of these horses. I feel like he's pretty divisive. Some people really like him. Some people think he's a big dark horse. Some people are all in. I know you're probably a little bit stronger on him than I am. So why don't you take it away a little bit? Talk to me a little bit about verifying and what draws you to this horse and makes you think he's got a real puncher's chance in the Kentucky Derby.
Yes, sir. I love him. And here's why. I was high on him. I saw a lot of natural talent early. And then he had a couple of quote-unquote clunkers going in there, so he did not necessarily look wonderful. He had some bad trips. He had some less than perfect situations going in, and I'm talking about going back to the Keeneland. Two or three races there that didn't look wonderful. How's that?
Yeah.
All the way until he finally went back to Keeneland in the Bluegrass, finished second, but a very strong second. And he was dueling it out with another one of my favorite horses. I mean, those two horses are the top of the food chain for me. And I saw somebody else, I was surprised today, taking those same two horses on top of their list as, overall Derby favorites, even over Forte and some of the others. But yes, I'm a big fan of this horse. Brad Cox, TG, those are my guys. I love verifying. I think you're going to get a really reasonable price, probably 12-1, something like that. 7th or 8th choice on the board. Love it. At least 12-1. Where do you think he's going to go off post time?
Yeah, I think he'll probably be in that lower double digit spectrum, so between 10-1 and 15-1, I would imagine. As you can see, he's a horse that's 4 for 6 in the money, 4 for 6 in the exacta, in fact, in his career. Really, kind of one bad race in the juvenile for the Breeders' Cup, and then a little bit of a troubled race at the Rebel as well. I mean, that was just he didn't get the best ride from Florent Giroux that day. I didn't think there was a lot of indecision on Giroux's part, and he was also chasing a really fast pace up front and was still able to maintain 4th, which I thought was actually a lot more impressive than it might have seemed on paper. And there was a jockey change, obviously, to Tyler Gaffalione, who we should just say obviously suffered a pretty scary injury the other day at Keeneland. And sadly, the horse had to be put down that he was riding after falling in that race. Gaffalione managed to escape with only kind of superficial wounds, but
very scary.
It was.
That crash took my breath away.
I didn't like seeing that
because I'm a big Tyler fan.
Yeah.
He's been on the channel. He's a nice kid. That was scary.
Yeah. And so, but it does seem like he'll be back and okay for the Kentucky Derby. So he's going to be verifying jockey. And yeah, I think you can make a case for, listen, the Breeders' Cup is always a little bit of a difficult race for horses that have just, ran 2 races before. But we should point out this was verifying's a horse that broke his maiden at Saratoga, then came back and ran second in the Grade 1 Champagne in his only second career start. Really looked like he was going to get the win that day, to be honest, until Blazing Sevens came flying up late to win that race. Then goes to the Breeders' Cup, takes a long layoff, and then comes back at Oaklawn to actually win an allowance optional claimer. Then, like you said, had some trouble at the Rebel and duked out with Tapit Trice there at the Bluegrass at Keeneland. I'm interested, what sort of trip, El Hombre, do you see verifying taking? He likes to be pretty forward, but I don't know. Do you think he's going to be on the lead? Do you think he's going to try to sit a little bit? Interested in your thoughts there.
I think he's going to, as long as there's not a rabbit going out, and I don't think anybody's declaring themselves as a rabbit at this point. There is no Summer is Tomorrow this year. There's no Crown Pride this year. So I think there's a bunch of horses that are, and I think you're going to see some tactical weirdness, honestly, because a horse like verifying very much could go to the lead and wire the field. I mean, honestly, I feel like he's that good. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he takes like the post draw is very important, obviously. But
yeah,
if he can get to that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th position and just sit, a length or 2 off, I love verifying's chances here at a decent price. And like you said, him and Tapit Trice are those are my horses. I'm all in on those two. I thought the Bluegrass, a lot of people thought that was kind of a weak field. I thought it was a weak field outside of those two, but I thought those two were right at the top of the game. You're going to get good prices on both of them. Well, maybe not so much Tapit Trice, but Verifying, because he finished second by like, a half length. He's going to get a price, and there's no reason for it. I'm a big Justify fan on top. Let's go. I love Verifying. Love Tyler Leon.
Yeah, I think the argument against Verifying would be a little bit of he had kind of the perfect setup at the Bluegrass, sat just off of a moderate pace, and then didn't get the job done. And obviously, we should say that both Verifying and Tapit Trice easily pulled away from the rest of the field. And so you're exactly right that there was kind of this huge gap between the two of them and everybody else. I think Blazing Sevens was something like 5 lengths back, but it was one of those things where you say, well, he got the perfect setup and he couldn't get it done. And now we're going to be stretching out a little bit longer. And, as a horse on the front end that couldn't get it done at a shorter distance, going to be able to get it done at a longer distance. Now, you mentioned the Justify pedigree up top. Obviously, there's good distance pedigree underneath of Verifying as well. So you would expect that he could handle the distance. I'm interested in the fact that he's one of 3, obviously, Brad Cox entries in this race, potentially 4 if Jace's Road ends up coming in. And he's right now the first horse up on deck. If somebody drops out of this field, he would draw in. So I'm interested, when you see a trainer having multiple horses, and particularly Cox, who has Angel Empire, who seems to be his number 1 horse in a lot of people's eyes right now, does that devalue Verifying a little bit? Does that, give you, do you see opportunity for value in that case?
No, I love Angel of Empire too. I mean, I think the value out of Verifying is going to be like 3 times Angel of Empire, which, I mean, I can make a case for Angel of Empire as the best horse in the race completely, but to go back to the Tapit Trice argument, here's my argument. If you want to say that, if you believe in Tapit Trice, which I do, it should make you like Verifying a lot, and here's why. Because Tapit Trice got his best start of his career. He's been terrible out of the gate, the worst amongst the 20, arguably the worst amongst the 20. And Tapit Trice's race might be over within 2 steps on Kentucky Derby Day if he doesn't get out. It could be over. Verifying's been way more consistent on that. And like you said, Verifying did get an ideal trip at the Bluegrass because there wasn't a whole lot besides Tapit Trice in there to compete with him. But if I don't think he's the risk level of Tapit Trice, because Tapit Trice might be done in 2 steps. Verifying won't be. And they basically went toe-to-toe, nose to nose, all the way down the stretch, and they were both very impressive to me. I think one of those two is going to win. Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm a sucker for a Brad Cox. I do like Cox is stacked. I like Gaffleone on Verifying. Yeah, I just have a feeling that it's going to be one of those two, and I know you're against that, and that's going to be fun to talk about in our case against later. But
absolutely. But here's the thing, and here's what I'll say about Verifying, because you're right about risk. I think that's a great point you made, because we talked about another horse in another one of our Spotlight series, Kingsbarns. Very similar horse in terms of likes to get out, be forwardly placed. The difference is Kingsbarns, 3 career races. You could argue never really been tested, doesn't have the 2-year-old foundation. You look at Verifying, and Verifying is, in my opinion, probably a less risky version of Kingsbarns in that he can be a little bit more versatile. He doesn't need the lead in maybe the same way Kingsbarns might kind of want the lead. And he's got the foundation. He's been through the ups and downs. He's had rough trips. He's had to overcome things. And yet you're going to get 12-1, 15-1. You're going to get a price on him. And that's, I think, much more appealing. Certainly, you're right, than a horse like Tapit Trice, who, you're right, 2 steps into the Kentucky Derby, the race is over. And I know the race isn't going to be over with Verifying until maybe the top of the stretch. And then we'll figure out kind of where things are. But honestly, if you can isolate a horse that's got a shot at the top of the stretch, that's a pretty good starting place to be, I think, for the Kentucky Derby.
Those 2 Bluegrass horses are on top of all my tickets. I mean, or at least boxed in all my tickets. I'm higher on them than most people are. I'm a sucker for those 2. I don't know why. I've kind of been on them all year, and Verifying finally had a good, clean run last time out and showed that he could do it.
Yep.
Speed figures are there. It's going to be awesome, dude. I can't wait to get to watch this thing, because honestly, I feel like there's 8 horses that could win. And that's not including the Rich Strike Cinderella story that could come through at any point. But
Yep.
In my opinion, there's 8 legit horses that are all pretty similar, including Forte, who's everybody's top choice or consensus top choice around the country. I don't see it. I don't see any separation with him in about the next 6 or 7.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think this is a wide open field. So when we have these spotlight series and we're all kind of, sometimes some of us are stronger on some horses than others, higher on some than others. But at the end of the day, a lot of us say, this horse has got a shot. This horse has got a chance. Even if I like
Yeah.
this horse more or less, I mean, you like Verifying more than I do, but I'm not going to say he doesn't have a chance. He's absolutely got a chance to win this race.
Right.
And so
I'll say the same thing about Dermot Sotogake and a couple of the others that you like. You're heavy on them. I can't write them off. I'm not going to sit here and say you're an idiot.
Right.
They're in there. I'll say you're an idiot about a couple of them. Wild and Ice.
Yeah, Wild and Ice.
Sorry, to a lot of the commenters are high on him. I don't see it, but
I don't see it
either.
either.
That for another day.
We've been wrong.
Bash me in the comments, baby. I love it.
All right.
Anything else? What are we doing?
No, I was just going to say, just remind everybody to like and subscribe. We got tons of more Derby content coming up. So much stuff. We got people from across the industry. We got more spotlight videos. We got more graded stakes previews, live betting Thursday night in the lounge. Anything you want for horse racing, we got you covered right here on Trust the Profits. For El Hombre, I'm Matthew DeSantis at Failed to Menace, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it is now post time.